It's the world's second biggest economy by GDP, a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, and home to more than 500 million people. But the European Union may be facing some tough times ahead. The United Kingdom, one of the oldest member states, is on its way out. Far-right parties with Eurosceptic sentiment are growing. Countries are yet to find a common ground on how to deal with the influx of refugees, and the economy seems to be on the verge of a crisis. So, can the Union overcome the challenges, or is this the end of the European project?
I wouldn't say it's the end of the European project. I mean, the European project has been going on for over 60 years now, and it's been morphing and changing along with the crisis. What's different this time, I think, is that the size of the crisis and the fact that many countries are affected.
Well, I certainly hope that this is the beginning of the end of the European Union. After all, this is a body that really isn't fit for purpose. The idea of having a monolithic, undemocratic, Soviet Union-style European Union is something that I think most people are deeply concerned about.
The European Union is today a type of border. That means I think that nations and states should decide whether the European Union will really serve as it was meant at the very beginning, as important peace project and framework for cooperation between states and nations.
The EU consists of three bodies responsible for making policy and taking decisions. The European Parliament is a directly elected legislative body, which works with the Council of the European Union to amend and adopt EU legislation proposed by the European Commission. Since the EU doesn't have a government, the European Commission is the closest body that functions like one. It also represents the EU internationally. The Commission is made up of 28 members, one from each country. They aren't elected but appointed, which has been subject to criticism. Apart from that, turnouts at the parliamentary elections have sparked criticism. In 2014, turnout was reportedly the lowest ever, totaling 42.61%.
It's run by an unelected group of individuals who we can't throw out. And that is not good.
The most important thing for the European Union, it is the ability of a small number of people to rule over the masses without being elected.
We have the European Parliament, and this is getting more and more power inside the institution of the European Union. It's the Council of Europe that makes all the big decisions. So it's nation states that actually discuss around the table. There are still room for improvement, but surely the Parliament is key to making European institutions more democratic.
For decades, the EU has been promoting democratic values, but this may be under threat with the far right on the rise. Political parties now represented in their national parliament have been accused of spreading anti-immigrant sentiment, xenophobia, and Islamophobia.
Everyone who discriminated the other on religious or national ethnical basis should be punished by the law. And in all legislations we have appropriate offense, but it's never practiced properly.
The migration has been one extremely important source of our European identity. It has never clashed with that European identity. Our European identity is actually based on a number of the resources, and migration is one of them.
There's a lot of exaggeration in the press of the influence of the far right. We really don't have a far right in this country. I mean, there are a few lunatics, but they're so far on the fringe. It's probably a slightly greater problem in Germany, but again, we're talking about minorities.
Apart from the far right, populist Euroscepticism has been growing. Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally in France, called the EU a huge prison. She even called for the abolition of the euro during her presidential campaign in 2017.
In most of European countries, people feared that globalization was not working for them, and they want to go back to a world where frontiers, customs, and nations are next together, but do not try to work together as neighbors.
I'm not underestimating this role of raising of populists and so on, but I hope very much that the reaction is going to be much more concrete dialogue with the public, between the politicians and the public, what's going on in Brussels.
political skepticism apart, citizens from 25 out of the 28 countries think EU membership has paid off. But many believe that reform is needed, and it should begin with making EU institutions more democratic.
Well, I think they ought to look at their institution in Brussels and introduce a greater level of democracy. And I think that would probably stop the rot for the moment. But I see no willingness to do this at all. As far as Brussels is concerned, they have got their rules and they're sticking to it.
What kind of shape the European Union should have? It should be about a homogeneous bloc, one size fits all, or it should be about some core group which go deeper and faster as far as integration, and the rest will be around in some kind of orbits, not because someone else is going to tell them to be there, but because of their own decision. And I can imagine that it could work.
We can't keep Europe as it is. Everybody is well aware of this. It doesn't work. If you look at the big crisis so far, migration is a big issue. It's not resolved. The financial crisis was sort of resolved, but we're waiting for the next one. We're not sure the euro will stand for the next wave of financial crisis.
So, will the EU prevail?